on today's call. I mean, like I just told him, I've been following him for years. Different conferences, different podcasts he's on, talks he has. I've been following I Pull Rank for years, and it's been like, this guy, if they say who you want to be when you grow up, I've got a couple, and he's on that top 3 list. I was like, this guy is awesome. So, Mike, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. And how do I even follow that intro?
Well, I know you're going to follow it with a lot of great content, because you always bring it. And, I know you're going to pretty much wow everybody with things they probably didn't even think about. So,
I mean, my main goal anytime, like I do anything, whether it's write a blog post or do a talk, I have 2 goals. 1, don't be boring. And 2, try to like come with something that people either haven't heard of before or just about to do those things. We can do.
Yeah. Oh, we're having some technical difficulties. I think it's chopping up.
Uh-oh. You hear me now?
Okay. Okay, you're on there.
Cool.
Yeah. So you were saying whenever you do a blog post or you do a talk, you try to bring the energy and
yeah, I try to not be boring, and I try to think of something that people either are not thinking about or they haven't heard of before. So then that way we can always do something valuable. So if we can do that today, then I'm all good.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can. I'm really hoping that we do. And SEO has changed so much, so I'm sure you have a lot to bring to the table.
So. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I've been talking about lately, especially around the technical stuff. I think it's to really understand the technical ends of SEO, because for like the last few years, everybody's been it's just content, all content marketing, and we've kind of forgotten the roots of SEO and where we can drive value with things that aren't just content.
Okay. Yeah. And since the beginning, everybody was on the whole keyword, I would say gold rush, keywords. Everybody was on that. Then it was links. Let's get all these links. Then it was, let's get all these articles out here. And then it was, we got to go ahead and structure the website in a certain way and get some schemas involved. Let's do these schemas. Everybody's just jumping on the next gold rush in a sense.
Sure.
What would you say would be the best thing with just setting up a real sound SEO foundation?
I mean, before you even think about which channel you're going to be in, I think the first thing you need to understand is who your audience is and what their motivations are, what they care about, what is their intent when they get to your site. So, it's a combination of understanding who their personas are and then also having a good foundation in the keyword research. So making sure that you're creating things that are actually going to resonate with those audiences. And so to that point, we combine our audience research with our keyword research so that we can have a good sense of that. And then after that, it's about the technical architecture of the site. So one, are you building on a CMS that doesn't suck, and that doesn't have issues with you updating things? So, if I had to choose, I'd say WordPress pretty much all the time, unless it's like we're talking about e-commerce or something like that, or the client has, some sort of specific app that they're trying to build. So other than that, I'd say go WordPress because, there's plugins for everything, right? And then structure your site around that original research. So make sure your taxonomy follows that keyword research. Make sure that SEO is just baked into that from the beginning. And then just make sure you're making content that speaks to once also through that lens of that keyword research. So if you do that, you're pretty much more than half the way there. It's just like promoting that content effectively and getting links from it, or for it rather, once you've put that content out.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that one thing about knowing your audience first, because that's the one thing, no matter small or large businesses, that they just want to overlook that. They want to just say, well, I don't want to look at who the audience would be and what their intentions are. I just want to use these because these buzzwords seem to come up whenever I type. And one of the things I always say is you're not your audience. So
Right.
there's a lot of things, a lot of jargon, a lot of things that you would type that your audience wouldn't even dream of typing. And,
Absolutely.
okay. And most of the time, this is the one thing that I've noticed. A lot of times companies get into a vanity play. And I tell them, what's your goal? Is it to sell something or to just be first? Because if it's just to be first, cool.
Yeah, because like when a lot of people come to me, they're like, yeah, I want to rank #1 for TV. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to help you do anything, right? Like people that are searching for TV don't know what they want to buy. So it's not really going to be a very valuable keyword if you get. And it's such a broad idea that the person clicking that is not going to align with what you're trying to do. So the example I always use for this is like when I used to do hip hop for a living, I made my site rank #1 for best rapper ever. And I got the traffic, but like it was awful traffic because all these people were looking for Lil Wayne. So, it's just a vanity thing. It's like, oh, I can tell people like, yeah, I rank for best rapper ever. And I would put it in verses. And I thought it was a really cool thing. But it had no value as far as like what I want my website to do. It never got me to sell music. It never got me to sell CDs. It didn't get me booked shows. It was just something that like it was cool for me to say. And that's very much what brands are doing when they're like, yeah, I want to rank #1 for TV. Like, okay, you're going to get traffic, but it's not qualified traffic. So I always say, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And let's figure out the keywords that align with that and align with your audience so they're in that right need state when they look for that keyword and land on your site and you have the right things to then convince them to buy something or at least move them through their user journey of buying something because it is valuable to rank for those broad keywords when you're using that as the opportunity to decide or help someone decide how to think about a product. So let's talk about TV again. Like when you type in TV, if you rank for #1 for TV and you have some sort of like guide to how to buy a TV, you're shaping how they think about that process. So I think it's valuable to do it that way. But so many brands don't create content like that. They just want their product page to rank for TV, which is not a good user experience.
Yeah, and it makes sense. A lot of times I'll tell them there's buckets to put them in. You have your brand bucket, that's for brand security. You have your intention bucket, that's for the intention terms. And then you have your action bucket, and those are the action terms. And each one should be addressed differently. And like you said, that user journey. So with that user journey, the brand, of course, that's the ones that are already aware of you and secure the brand. But then there's the intention. Those are the ones that are tire kickers. They're just, they have an intention. It may not be an immediate type of sale. And then you do have the action ones that the buy. And I always use cars because I love cars. So you have Acura or BMW. And then, okay, that's good. But then you have intention, like, BMW reviews and things of that nature. But then you have to buy a BMW 750. That's an action one. So, you address them differently. And a lot of companies don't. They just bucket them all into one lump and pretty much just roll the dice in the meetings. Everybody's jumping around, patting each other on the back because we rank for our brand name. We rank for our
name. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be doing something really wrong to not rank for your name.
Oh, man. But do you understand how many people that is the only goal that they have? It's, I rank for my brand.
In some cases, in e-commerce, that's a lot of where the actual conversion comes from. So let's say we're talking about like a clothing brand. You're not going to get as much value out of ranking #1 for sweaters as you will for ranking for Polo Ralph Lauren sweaters. And I know this for a fact because I used to work on Polo Ralph Lauren and we got them #1 for sweaters. So definitely value in the broad terms, because you're helping these people who don't know what they want to buy to see what's out there. But there, in a lot of ways, in a lot of cases, especially for e-commerce, it's better to rank for your branded terms because those are closer to those actions, like you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you now.
What
Now
you
we're
got?
talking about ranking, and everybody talks about Google,
Uh-huh.
but now there's other players in the space.
Sure.
How do you address those other players? I mean, Facebook is coming up fast, and you've got mobile ranking. You've got, it was funny. I was talking to a guy last night about ranking. He said, I'm ranking in this map section of Google, and that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. But he's a
Mm-hmm.
local vendor. And I said, well,
Sure.
most people, when they're looking for a service, they'll pulling it up, but they're pulling it up in several different parts. So there's several different search engines they may go to. Like, for instance, when you're looking at restaurants, they'll go to Yelp before they'll go somewhere else because they want to see who ranks in Yelp and reviews. So how do you address like the other players in the space?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think we're moving from just SEO into what we call findability, because there's so many different portals, so many different search engines, that if you just focus on Google, you're going to start to miss out, because we got things like Siri, we got things like the fact that mobile rankings are completely different for every single user. Well, not every single, but for most users, because it's
Yeah.
dependent upon a lot of different factors. So then you also have, App Store optimization. Like, how do you get your app to be the first? And then when you're thinking about things like Alexa and now Google Home, well, there's only one answer that you're going to get there. So there's so many more components to search now that you have to think about, how do you account for these? So going back to local search, like appearing in that map, that's a different set of factors than organic search. And things are getting more and more nuanced for each of those different subsets of search. But for things like app stores and Amazon and all those other portals, it's very much like doing SEO in 2003, where it's like keyword stuffing and using the user behavior. So people do things on Amazon where they'll make their book for free for 24 hours just so they can get the activity of the reviews and the downloads and the buying and such, so that it causes that snowball effect. And the same thing is true of App Store optimization. But things like local and video search, like, they are far more nuanced, and they have so many different factors that are separate from organic. So like with local search, it's primarily about the alignment of your local your location page with your Google My Business profile. And then, everything after that, like the citations, are kind of like icing on the cake. So there's a lot more factors that need to come into play, that if you just do standard organic search, you're not going to be able to rank well in those different portals and sections.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said before, knowing your audience, so you know how your audience looks to engage with you, to determine which one you really want to go after.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's important, and that's good that you say that they have so many different factors to each, because everybody usually wants to do the cookie cutter. Well,
Right.
I've heard that you need to do this, and they're looking at it from the Google point of view. They're not looking at it from another engine point of view. So it's good that you said that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I still would put it into something like Bing, but these other portals and these other channels are really important, especially if you're selling products and such. Then Amazon is incredibly important to you.
yeah,
If you're heavy in a video, well, you definitely want to be at the top of YouTube. So
yeah,
it's all about which channels you want to be active in, which should be dictated by which channels your audience is active in.
yeah. And interesting enough about Bing, I had a client that I worked with where Bing didn't, by volume, measure up at all to Google, but by conversion, they definitely outpaced Google,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they had much higher or AOV, much higher.
Absolutely.
But the
Absolutely. We see
audience
that a
was,
lot.
the audience were older women. So that audience Bing seems to relate to a little better than Google did.
Well, it's the combination of, I don't know if it's necessarily relating. It's more about those people's behavior. So an older demographic doesn't necessarily know how to change their default search engine. So they're using Bing, but that older demographic is also more susceptible to certain messages. So not to like hate on these people, but like that's something that is just a general principle that you're seeing a lot more conversions from Bing because these are less internet savvy people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes good sense. So knowing the actual platform that you're on helps as well. So
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think about the fact that they didn't switch it over, and by default on their computer, Bing is the search engine.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that, you know, if you look at the analytics for that client you work on, that Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In most cases, that was the case. I think they threw a couple of curves because one was on, I forgot what it is, Amazon something, Amazon, the browser for Amazon. I didn't even really realize that people use the browser for Amazon, but come to find out it's from the Kindle, I mean, the
Yeah, the
Fire.
Kindle
So,
Fire. Yeah.
yeah, so that's interesting. So, when you're approaching, a company, especially companies that have multiple departments and so forth, um, how do you usually address the need for organic and search within the organization and making it play well with others? Because when you're sitting in those meetings, everybody has their own agenda.
Sure, sure. And that's definitely a huge sticking point, especially when you're working with huge organizations. You know, it's really about making sure that you are coming across as understanding their issues, like what they're trying to solve, and just making sure that SEO plays nice with it. Because, you know, I think of SEO as like the Kanye West of marketing, and that it just kind of comes in and disrupts everything, and it just wants to be number one. But in a lot of ways, the things that you have to do for SEO may completely disrupt what you want to do for social, or it may disrupt or not take into account what's going on in paid. And so our approach is all about how do we have kind of parity between all of those different channels, and don't think about just overpowering SEO over other channels. And so
Okay.
I think it's important because we don't just do SEO, so it's a lot easier for us to understand those other channels. But a lot of SEO companies or agencies or what have you only think about their channel. So
Yeah.
we go into those discussions with business cases that account for what's going on in those other channels. So we'll say, hey, we can support social by making sure that there's social metadata on the site, because we own metadata. Generally speaking, it's a lot easier for us to get that done than it is for social that doesn't even necessarily know about the social meta tag.
Yeah.
They just know about the channels themselves. So
Yeah.
we always think about how we can support things. And then also, let's say paid search, because paid search still gets way more budget than organic, but we can show them like, hey, when we have rankings for both positions, like you're number one in paid and then you're also number one in organic, we can show that there's a halo effect of that. In some cases, that's as much as 30%. So we're always making cases in terms for how our recommendations will impact those channels positively. Because if you don't do that, you know, it's just, oh, here comes SEO again. Why can't they just stick to their Why do they think they need to do content? So we can also make effective business cases, especially around content, which in a lot of ways can support those other channels that don't have the data that shows why this content is valuable. So from my perspective, it's all about how do we add on to those teams and other channels rather than taking away from.
Okay, and that makes sense. Now, one good point that you made was about with SEO and SEM. And SEM usually gets a lot more budget because they actually have analytics that are direct relating to it. But I've noticed that SEO now, with tools like SEO Clarity and even now with AdWords tying into your search console and so forth, they're trying to make it to where there's some more accountability and you can show some attribution and direct relations with SEO and that actual sale or the actual ROI. What are some best practices in line with that?
So I look at measurement a little different. Like I don't really care which specific keyword, drove whatever outcome. I look at it like this. What impact does organic search have as a channel for the client?
Mhm.
So, whether it's like the keyword again, TV driving you 30 TV sales, I don't care
Mhm.
about that. I care about month over month or week over week or day over day, whatever they care about year over year. Did the
Mhm.
organic channel sell more of that thing, or did it yield more or leads, or did it yield more email signups? Whatever those goals are, I look at organic search as a channel, because every other channel we're thinking about it as a channel,
Mhm.
right? Display, you're thinking about it as a channel. If you're using um, social, you're thinking about it as a channel. It's only search where people expect that granularity. But because of the fact that organic search can no longer give you that granularity, it doesn't make sense to keep trying to like replicate what we used to have. So
Okay.
I think of it as like, what is this channel doing for us as far as which landing pages are driving more, um,
Mhm.
which which content types are driving more, and then
Mhm.
also what is the assisted conversions that we're getting from organic search as well. So if somebody
Mhm.
discovers a piece of content for the first time and discovers the brand for the first time through a piece of content that we built and that came from organic search, and then ultimately 90 days later they end up coming back through another channel, whether it's direct or email or whatever, I expect that that value should also be at least somewhat attributed to organic search. So I think of it more holistically than just like what keyword made us money. It's like,
Mhm.
what did organic search make us in money?
Well, but what about companies that either set up or B just don't understand it? I mean, how do you approach them? Because a lot of companies they don't even look at the attribution. They look at last touch, and that's
Yeah,
it. That's all they
yeah.
look at.
So to that point, one of the things that we do with all of our clients that we do reporting for is what we call a measurement plan. And we identify all the
Mhm.
KPIs by channel. We also tie things, again, going back to that user journey. So all of the content in Google Analytics is um, using Google Analytics content grouping. All the content is tagged based on the user journey. So we can see where the user started. Like, did they start at awareness content? Did they later come down to, decision content? And then where did they come from originally? So
Mhm.
all that stuff is laid out for our clients before we even do reporting. Like, we'll do rank tracking and stuff. That'll always be in the report, but that's like in the appendix of the report. Where if you want to see
Okay.
how your rankings change, go ahead. But what we care about is what we did for your business. I don't
Yeah.
care if your rankings went up or down. I care about, did we drive the qualified traffic that did ultimately convert? And then we'll
Yeah.
look at the rankings themselves as kind of like levers. Like, okay, we have impact on those rankings,
Mhm.
but what I care about is what those rankings ultimately did for a business. Because rankings are just an opportunity, right? Like, you can rank, but if no one clicks, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
know, did those people come back to your site and then do the thing that we wanted them to
All right, Mike. You shaking up the game now. You shaking up a lot of
do?
SEO people's money right now. I mean, because honestly, there's a lot of agencies that and SEOs out there that's what they eat off of. It's like where you rank. It doesn't go any further than that. It's like, okay, I have you ranking for your name. You're good. Pay my check.
Yeah.
You know, and
No, that's fine. That's fine. Like, a lot of people look at it that way. I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying that, like, this is what we do, and this is what we
yeah,
show. We use to show impact. There's just a huge disconnect, and a lot of people can just show you that you got rankings for keywords that don't drive traffic, and they're like, "Yeah,
yeah.
job done. We did what we're supposed to do." But I see a very short shelf life for those types of relationships with clients. So I'm
Yeah.
more about, how can we help you with your business? And a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, oh yeah, I just want to rank better for these keywords. Like, I had a call like that earlier today. And I was like, but what is the problem you're trying to solve? And then
Mhm.
we realized that, like, oh, they need help with paid search. They need help with conversion rate optimization. They need help with content. Like, one, that's better for me because we have a more robust campaign. And then
Mhm.
two, it's better for them because we can actually do things that yield business impact. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm all about.
Yeah. And that really helps out the overall industry because, like you said, that short shelf life, they don't just say, this is what happened with this particular case or this particular company. They say all SEO doesn't work. All
Right.
SEOs are out to just do this type of thing. So that helps to educate them on an understanding of the true place that SEO has within their whole marketing mix.
No, I agree. I think education is such a huge part of what we do. Um, you know, we have like complete decks where we just walk them through like why we do what we do, how we do it, how they can use it once it's done.
Mhm.
And that goes such a long way with our clients. You know, they have a good understanding of the value that we bring. Whereas when you just like do things, throw them at people and then be like, hey, we got rankings, like they don't understand why they need you after that. You know, like you're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we rank number one now. Bye. You know, like you need to
Yeah.
educate your clients so they can understand um, why you're better than just outsourcing it to India, or why even keep paying you to begin with. So I think education is a huge thing that we do.
Oh, it's great. Well, hey, I think you gave everybody more than their share today. How they should look at their SEO, and I like to thank you. And I'm gonna be shameless. If you're looking for a mentee, I'm available to be a mentee. 'Cause like I
Hey,
say, I've been a fan for a while.
yeah, man, I love those type of mentor relationships. You know, I'm happy to discuss. You know, I just love helping. So definitely.
Great. Well, everybody, I hope that you got as much enjoyment out of this show as I did, and I want you to definitely look at your SEO and see if it's working for you the way that you would like, and if not, then get educated about it. Look Mike up, look I pull rank up, and just get more educated, get familiar, and reach out and find out how you can actually make your SEO work for your business versus just for your vanity. So this has been
Yeah,
another marketing session.
that's a good tagline for this episode. How to
Oh,
make
I better go.
SEO work for your business instead of just
Hey,
for your
go ahead
vanity.
and use it. Go ahead and use it. I need to coin it. No, nah, but yeah, that's how. Hey, I got that from you though. Make it work, make it work. All
Nice.
right, everybody. Thanks a lot.